Hello and welcome to the Wallow podcast. I'm Rhea Dixon, netballer for Leeds Rhinos Netball, and I'm joined today, very luckily, by Courtney Winfield-Hill. Just give us a quick 10-second brief on who you are, please.
Oh, 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Courtney Winfield-Hill, wife, auntie, daughter, rugby player, former cricketer, crazy, sport mad. Throw this in there. Yeah. My first email address, Groover of Life, which Loz gives me so much heckle about.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really cool summary of me. There you go, Groover of Life.
I've known you about 2 weeks now, and I'd say that's a really good explanation. So today, as I've explained already, but just for anyone who doesn't know, the Why Wallow podcast decided to start just because I think we need a bit more honesty and a bit more kind of an idea of raw and relatable stories within sport.
You've come to the right person if you want honesty.
I think that when, like I was saying before, I feel like when I've been kind of going through my sporting journey, I've looked up to certain sports stars and, you know, successful people in sport and thought, wow, like I'd never get there. They've done this and this, or it was so easy for them, or like they've got a completely different mindset to me, so I'll never make it, kind of thing. And I think it's just important to make sure that people out there know that we are normal and we have been through hard things, but it's not always like you go through a hard thing and then you get over it and you push through and like all of that. Sometimes you go through a hard thing and it is awful, and you do have to kind of find your way around it in a completely non-linear way. So I think, why wallow? Because we are rhinos, and we wallow because rhinos wallow in the mud. It's good for their health, it's good for their skin, it's a good social activity. So, and
that's why I said to you off mic before, wasn't it? I'm really disappointed we haven't got mud masks.
I know. We'll bring that in. We're learning. I think we're just going to wallow in your journey from where you started to where you are now, and just like pick up bits of kind of how you felt during certain times and how you've got to where you are, and the different ups and downs that have made you the person you are today.
Plenty of them.
Yeah?
Plenty of them.
Okay, so
look forward to it. Okay.
Awesome. So if we get into it, I guess first question is always like, how did you start getting into your sport?
Yeah.
No, let's not say your sport now. How did you start getting into sport?
Yeah.
Like, what were your first kind of sporting memories and stuff?
First kind of memories, well, I think, you know, you talk about your environment, and I had a family who, my mum's side of the family were from Victoria. They moved to Queensland, but any Aussie listeners know the Victorians, it's just in their DNA. Sport is just, they live and breathe it. So I was constantly surrounded by it. I had my father and my grandfather played in the same cricket team. If it wasn't, you know, conversations or people in the family weren't playing, I reckon from day dot, the moment I had, you know, vision, I was seeing that, you know, people engaging with or conversing about sport. So it was just our household, which was terrific. My first memories, to be honest, I'm not sure that they're ultra young. My very first memory, thinking back, was my dad would he'd play golf with his buddies, and I used to absolutely crack tantrums because I couldn't go to golf with Dad.
Is that because you wanted to play golf? Or
I probably wanted to be with Dad.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to be around golf.
Yeah.
And you know, the family will laugh. Sometimes I would be allowed to go with Dad to golf, and they refer to it. I can't really remember it as such, but they'd say, you know, Dad had put me on the bag and I'd cling to it like a koala, and he'd tug me along on the trolley.
Yeah.
So that would get me around 9 or 18 holes, because you know what a 3-year-old kid's like.
Wow. Okay.
You know.
Yeah. Very patient of him to
well,
do
I'm
that.
not. Yeah, I don't know how often. You know what dads are like. No, not today, mate. It's special competition, but he's just out with the boys.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah. So that would certainly be some of my early memories. I went to. When we were 6, we moved from like a coastal town out to the bush.
Mm-hmm.
We refer to it as the bush, or like more rural Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And sport was, in those towns, were kind of the only things you could do.
Right.
I'd say the only things you could do.
You're
limited to activities out there, but people just seem to embrace sport.
Mm-hmm.
I had an awesome PE teacher who, to this day, I still refer to as Mr. Dugdale. He says, Courtney, come on, you can lose the Mr.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I hold him in such high regard still. It is Mr. Dugdale, and you know, people like that, especially a male influence who taught the girls, you know, you can play anything with the boys, like everybody's welcome here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that would probably be my first memories.
Yeah. So what sport did you play with Mr. Doug?
Mr. Dugdale. Everything. I suppose as a PE teacher, he covered everything.
Mm-hmm.
But my biggest ones, I think he was playing with the senior rugby league team at the time.
Right.
The Monto Roos, who was like the little town's rugby league team. I think he was playing with the senior men's team. So he was a good role model. Like, we would play rugby league, and definitely cricket, definitely athletics, a bit of softball thrown in there as well.
No netball.
You know what? I only spoke about this the other day.
Yeah.
The only reason, like in Monto, it was kind of cricket in the summer, and then rugby league or netball in the winter, and the boys and girls would go,
yeah.
You know, your typical boy-girl split. And the only reason I wouldn't play netball because you had to wear skirts.
Yeah.
And even in high school, I would have loved to have played netball.
Mm.
And I went along, I was actually the water girl for my team. I'd go to every fixture.
Mm.
And perhaps in some way I regret not playing netball, because I feel like it would have been a great social time with my buddies. But it was fair. It was. I just was not prepared to wear a skirt.
Yeah.
Or
It's
a dress.
such a shame, because I feel like that obviously is an issue for a lot of people.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I saw, I was in conversation with someone the other day, and they were saying, I don't understand why we still play in dresses, because
Well, they don't.
no one
Have
chooses.
you seen in Oz?
No.
They've changed it.
Who?
I can't remember. I saw it on Facebook
Yeah.
like a few months back, and now the girls can choose, or like the boys are playing so much netball out there now. But particularly the girls, they can, as long as it's the same colours and the same kind of design, you can wear bike pants or your bummers, you can wear a skirt, you can wear the dress, you can wear the shorts. A bit like OzTag did in Australia with, you can wear the really tight little shorts, or you can wear the long, more basketball-y shorts.
Yeah, right.
If that had been a thing in my day, I'm playing netball.
Yeah.
Because it was just a sport, you're competing.
Yeah.
You're with your mates.
Mm.
But it was that as simple as that.
Wow. Do you think that you would have... Do you feel like the way that your mindset is and the way that you just are as a person, you would have gone professional in netball if you'd have played it?
Oh, jeez.
Do you think you would have been? Do you think you would have been as?
Probably not. Like, probably like anything. My perception was very much it was and this is from coming from a girl.
Yeah.
It was too girly, a bit girly for me, and the whole contact thing. I was no good with that, because I mucked around with it in classes and stuff. And I was no good on the contact. I was always nudging someone or bumping into people.
So
but you know, I would have just loved an opportunity to, and I did have an opportunity. It was my choice. What are you talking about, Courtney? I chose not to do it.
Yeah.
But certainly, were there barriers to it
100%.
through uniform?
Yeah.
Sure. But I would have given it a red hot crack.
Yeah, of course you would.
And it would have. For me, it would have come down to who was the coach.
Right.
Who was the coach? Did I engage with them? Did I connect with them? If they were awesome, I probably would have stayed. Like your favourite subject at school. Your favourite subject at school is not often the subject.
That you're best
It's your
at.
teacher.
Yeah.
So if I had a cool netball coach, perhaps. Yeah.
Any coaches out there listening?
Take
you
note.
matter. Yes.
Yeah.
So that was primary school, where you went away from netball and you went into the rugby and cricket.
It was primary school. So in winter I chose rugby league.
Yeah.
And I remember having to beg my mum, please mum, can I go and play footy?
Mm-hmm.
And she was so reserved about it, and the only way I got around it was one of my really good mates, Sally Gale, she was a year older than me and she played rugby league.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Mum, Sally Gale's playing, like, come on. And the only way I was allowed to do it was if I wore headgear.
Oh,
so
right.
I had to have the old, do you remember, you won't remember, but Leanne, remember Steve Menzies, that kind of headgear, which looked like armour.
Yeah.
But we thought we were pretty cool in the day. So I was like, yeah, cool. If that's the only way I can play rugby league, then put it on my head.
Mm-hmm. Did you always keep it on, or did you put it on and then...
When we played away games,
yeah.
Sometimes my parents didn't always come and watch, so I'd get on the team bus and travel an hour or two.
Bye, Mum.
And sometimes I may have conveniently left it on the bus because it wasn't always cool.
Yeah.
So
But you didn't suffer.
But I reckon, as kids, like, what was I thinking? I'll leave it on the bus.
Yeah.
Your mum found out before I even got in the door.
Yeah.
One of the other parents would have, spoken to her and said, Courtney didn't wear a headgear today.
Mm-hmm.
What was I thinking? You try and get around your mums and they always damn know.
Yeah, so as we're on the subject of your mum, what would she have preferred if you weren't to beg her to play?
Probably
rugby?
tennis.
Okay.
Where you couldn't get hurt at all.
Okay.
Nah,
right.
Not really.
Mm.
That's probably more my nana. She actually always used to say that, Courtney, can't you play tennis?
Yeah, why do you play these rough games?
I don't know that she really had a preference. All I knew was that she was just a little bit worried about, the contact and being one of very, very few girls playing with the boys.
Mm.
But I think I proved to her eventually that I can hold my own.
Yeah.
Which I get from her.
I was going to say, we were talking about this before, but where kind of that desire to prove to her that you'll be okay and you can stick up for yourself and you can
and I knew, I was like, I'll be fine, Mum. We play at school all the time, and you play at school, and not that you can belt each other around, play properly, but I'm gonna be fine. And I think that was probably my own little self-belief at a really early age was I'm gonna be good. And I think as well, my dad, I definitely get elements from both my parents, but my dad would always talk to me about just sticking it to the boys.
Right.
Yeah, and he loved that, and he really encouraged that.
Mm. Did you have any siblings?
Yeah, I've got 2 younger sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Brody, who's 2.5 years younger than me. Obviously, a lot of those early years we spent together, fighting most of them.
Yeah, very good.
Best of mates now, but yeah. And then there's Luca, who's 13 years younger. So she's our little surprise package. So, she probably didn't shape as much. I probably shaped her more than vice versa, because, I was a teenager when she was a baby. So, and off at boarding school and what have you. But, yeah, maybe mum's willingness to say yes, okay, was a real blessing at that point. Yeah.
And dad having... when you were growing up, 2 daughters.
The old COVID cough.
Your dad having 2 daughters at the time, do you think that he felt that he had to prepare you kind of to face when you would approach kind of that man's world kind of environment? Maybe,
and that's a good question. Probably, perhaps I've never asked. Did he have intentions around building that?
Yeah. Because surely, like we were saying, nature versus nurture, surely you in yourself might have had something against the netball skirts and stuff like that, but do you think any of that might have come as well, from him that you have to
Yeah.
be a certain way.
Yeah, definitely.
To be taken seriously and stuff.
It's probably one of the best things he's taught me.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually mentioned it like in my wedding speech as a thank you to my parents was he would always throw this line at us, whether we, fell over and skinned a bit of bark off or were a bit upset about anything. He would always say, hill girls are tough girls.
Mm.
And that sort of mental programming of, no, I'm tough. And I know, 30 years on, the whole idea around tough, is it a thing? Mm. Is it a word we should use? But I suppose what he was trying to do was say, come on, get back up. Mm-hmm. Constantly was wipe your tears, get back up, have another go. Lots of times falling off your push bike and getting whacked at some sort of sport.
But obviously that's made you that's definitely shaped you into how you are.
Yeah, I use the word programmed. It's wired. Mm. You're wired certain ways, aren't you?
Like a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah. Sometimes it's on the flip. And Laura, my wife Loz, will sometimes say to me, "Oh yeah, hill girls are tough girls," because sometimes I'm not as empathetic and compassionate as I could or should be, particularly with a wife hat on.
Right.
So on one hand, like it's like anything. Your greatest strength is your strength, but go too far and it's your biggest weakness. Mm-hmm. And you just got to be mindful that others don't always have that same approach, or there's better ways with yourself. Mm. Sometimes I do say to myself, hill girls are tough girls, get up, keep going, but maybe that's the wrong message for myself some days as well.
Can't always be there. Yeah. So did you take that then from primary school into secondary school?
Hill girls are tough girls? Definitely.
Talk to us about your transition from primary to
secondary.
Yeah,
so that was very different transition. So grew up really in a really tiny little country town, and sport was awesome, but the opportunities, I think, particularly mum and dad realised that I loved my sport and I had a little bit of talent within that space. Mm-hmm. And they realised that perhaps that talent was not going to get nurtured as well if I stayed in Monto.
Right.
We had some terrific, don't get me wrong, we had terrific teachers and what have you, but it's like anything. It was a small pond, and I think mum and dad were looking for a bigger pond to throw me into, to challenge me.
Is it kind of where you're from, you kind of live there, grow up there, stay there, or is it
sometimes people... yeah, definitely. It's a very rural town, country. Some people will take over a family business or work on the family property. Lots of kids go to boarding school too, though. Lots of kids go to boarding school and return home.
Right.
And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's okay if you want to be, a beef producer or take over the dairy farm or, go harvesting for you because your family's got enormous grain property or whatever. But that's not where sport was.
Yeah.
That's not where the sporting arenas, so to speak, were in Queensland. I went 3 hours. I had the option to either go to, because at that point I was starting to dig my teeth into some cricket pathways. Mm-hmm. I had the option to either go to St Margaret's in Brisbane, which was 6-7 hours away, where cricket was mainly based, or I could go 3 hours up the road to Rockhampton, which was, the boarding kids there were all country kids.
Right.
Lots of real country kids, and in the end I loved cricket, but it was just, I don't know, the city life kind of, I wasn't real fond of that. And I just thought I can kind of get what I want. And I didn't, even at that point, and it's interesting, and I've only really thought about it this second, I never wanted to isolate in one sport.
Yeah. And
my fear was, probably looking back now, I didn't want to just do cricket and be sucked into that vacuum. Mm-hmm. Whereas Rocky allowed me this, just do everything. And I had a few friends there. Sally Gal, I spoke about her earlier.
Yeah.
She was 2 years older than me. She was already at girls' grammar, and I was like, I'm going there. If Sally Gal's there, I'm going there. She'll look after me. If it's good enough for Sally Gal, it's good enough for me.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and I had my best mate Kate. She was going as well, and I reckon from the age of probably 8, so year 3 in Australia, Mum said, "You're going to boarding school." So I didn't go till year 8 until I was 13.
But you knew it was coming.
I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Like, probably for many reasons. It wasn't just sport. Maybe Mum knew she's going to be an absolute pain in the rear, so get rid of her.
Yeah.
But it was the best thing. And Mum and Dad, you know, we didn't have money coming out of our ears. I say we, they. You know, money didn't grow on trees, as we always heard as kids. And some of the financial sacrifices they made to get me to boarding school were enormous.
Yeah.
And I do hope that it was one of the first things I said when I graduated, like, this has been the best thing, and thank you both so much. Best thing they could have ever done for me.
So when you went there, you had the idea that you were going for sport, and you knew that you were going to kind of make it in cricket?
So I didn't really know I was going to make it in cricket, and I mean, I always laugh about that comment, what is make it?
Yeah, no.
You know, like...
Yeah.
But I was lucky enough, and that was probably the only reason I went. I got a sport scholarship, which was like half tuition, basically, for the first 3 years of school. Without that, perhaps I wouldn't have been lucky enough to... Mum and Dad may not have been able to fund it fully. So yeah, I knew I was going. I knew cricket was one of the many things, and that was one of the conversations with the scholarship was, we know you love your cricket, but please, we want to put you in different spaces. And I did. Through high school, I played cricket, not a little bit, but it was more outside, all girls school. Cricket wasn't really a thing then.
Right.
So I played lots of touch footy, touch rugby as you guys would refer to it, water polo, athletic swimming, cross country, not netball, but soccer, football, basketball. I just try everything.
Yeah.
And that was what Mum drove into me, was, you're on this sports scholarship. If they ask you to do something, you go and do it.
Yeah, wow.
You know, and that suited me because...
You're into it?
I just love it.
Yeah.
That was my energy space.
And then what about, like, the academic side of things? Were you into that at all?
No.
So, like...
I wouldn't say I was into it. I wouldn't say I'm an empty head either.
Yeah.
But it wasn't my motivation at all.
Yeah. Because, like, for me, when I was going through school, I always, like, whenever anyone asked me what I wanted to do, I'd always say I just want to play netball.
Yeah.
But back then, you couldn't just play netball. But now, like, I'm so glad I still, like, for example, I remember one geography teacher said once when I didn't give my homework in, he was like, "Oh, why? What were you doing?" And I said I had netball, like I didn't do it. And he said in front of everyone, "Well, netball's not going to get you anywhere."
Yeah, exactly. I think I heard that a lot as a kid as well.
And just, like, I guess to now know that it is possible for other kids growing up is such a positive thing to know, because otherwise, if you're not gifted in academic, or you're not interested in that, then at least you can follow a passion.
I know, awful really when you think about it.
Yeah.
And that was for me as well. It was very much, okay, yeah, cool, you want to be a cricketer or have fun earning peanuts, if any.
Was it professional at all?
Yeah, eventually it got to that space, but it was always constantly, you know, you're leaving and you're thinking about career choices at school, and it was like, well, okay, my gift is, you know, physical, and wouldn't it be great if you could play professional sports straight out of school? You look at some kids now, and particularly in the male space, kids are on scholarships from, you know, early days. Girls we're still not there. No. We are so far behind. And that was the case. It was, okay, what are you going to study at university? And all those things, or, you know, get your head down in geography, because netball ain't going to pay your bills, Rhea.
It's just a hobby. It's just
Like, how crushing is
yeah.
that? Where I didn't go to a co-ed high school, but even as a teacher, like, I found myself saying that to a girl, and a boy in the classroom sat there thinking, well, you know, I'm on a Broncos scholarship, or I've got this. And even out of my mouth, which disappoints me quite a lot, but it came out my mouth because that's the real world, kiddo. Sorry, darling, but keep striving in these spaces too, because
you never know.
It may not, like, if it doesn't come off for you,
Mm-hmm.
and if it does, you ain't going to earn as much as old mate over here.
Mm-hmm.
It's awful.
Yeah. Did you find that any kind of conflict between the academic side and the sports side at school?
Yes.
Was it always just...
yeah, definitely. Like, I loved some subjects.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I love some. I love the teachers that instilled a real passion and love for their subject. You know, maths was all right, but because of Mr. Deeth, I enjoyed going to maths. And why do I enjoy Mr. Deeth? Because he asked me how cricket was. Simple. You know, home ec, I spoke off mic before. I loved going to cooking and sewing, like our home ec classes, because Mrs. Gunn, she was the most petite, beautiful, gentle lady. But she was English, and we'd always have banter over, you know, the ashes. Yeah, so I loved going to home ec and food tech.
Mrs.
Well, I
Gunn.
got a feed with it,
Yeah.
you know, like, and boarding school food wasn't always terrific, so that was one excuse. But Mrs. Gunn was awesome. She was a real little gentle lady, and it was simply the fact that we had a bit of chat around the Ashes cricket or the England v Oz rugby, and we'd always have little bets on and things like that. So she engaged in my space. My PE teacher, Miss Luck, was just hands down the best thing ever. So and the subject, of course, drew me in. But academics wise, Mum always pushed me. Like, I remember probably one of my first maths results I got back, and I rang Mum. I said, Mum, I got a B+. Like, I was pretty chuffed. And she said, "We need to work harder for an A next time, don't you?" And I was like, oh no. But she was just very conscious of, I was there on a scholarship, Courtney, you dig in.
Yeah.
And I probably didn't dig in academically. I dug in with sport and I did everything, but I did so much sport. I just remember, like, through year 10 particularly, I'd go to training straight after school for whatever sport it was. Prep, study time was like 5 o'clock. And I'd actually come upstairs, and that year 10 you actually got a little bit more freedom. You could study in your rooms.
Right.
And I'd sneakily shut my door and go to sleep. I wouldn't be at my desk. I'd go to bed for an hour. I'd wake up, I'd go to dinner, and then after study I might get a bit of study done, and then I'd be in bed earlier. I don't know if maybe at that time I had a bit of a fatigue issue. But I just crashed. Yeah. And the girls would laugh about it. Oh yeah, she won't be studying, she'll be asleep. I did. I'd be up early the next day to go and try something.
Yeah.
Go and train for whatever. But yeah, in year 12 particularly, like year 11 and 12, year 12's like our A-levels equivalent.
Yeah.
And there'd be girls and say, "Oh, Courtney, have you started this?" I said, "I haven't even started it. Like, don't ask me what the answer is."
That was
like,
me as well, yeah.
Wouldn't have a clue.
No. When does cricket start getting serious? Well, I guess it's all...
Serious,
yeah. You went for a scholarship, so it was always serious.
So it was interesting, hey, like, I had to do my cricket away from girls' grammar. Girls' grammar didn't offer it as a sport at the time. So we actually, maybe in year 10 we had a team, but it wasn't a continuous thing. So I had to go and play with the boys a lot. I did a lot of representative stuff away, down in Brisbane, and then we had nationals and all that stuff. But I got to 16 and I quit cricket for 3 years.
Right.
So maybe that's my sports scholarship had finished then, I wasn't bound to doing anything cricket-wise. And being a summer sport, like, all my friends would be off at the beach for the weekend, and they'd come back saying, oh, it was awesome, and we caught up with this person and that person, and I'd be with the boys. And in Rockhampton, it's stinking hot. Like, and you know what cricket's like. It takes most of your day to stand around. And at that time, a couple of boys had a few comments, and I cared, but I didn't. Like, it was like, why am I here when all my mates are over there and I just want to hang out with my pals, and is this worth it? And I was just like, no, it's not worth it.
Did your mum have anything to say about that?
You know what, I don't think she did at the time.
Yeah.
Maybe that's when she's probably, yeah, I'd remember it if she did, put it that way. But I remember my coach, my state coach, my Queensland coach, they, gave me a couple of phone calls and said, come on, let's go. Because I'd played under 17s from when I was 12. So I was the tiny little, tiny little one of the group. And perhaps they saw a bit of potential, and maybe they saw it as a bit wasted. And I was just like, don't even bother. Like, for me, once I've made a decision, I have made a decision. Poorly. Once I made a decision, I've made a decision, and like, don't try and sway me. Yeah. And yeah, that was 3 years I took off, and then I realised after 3 years I was at university, and I was like, I kind of missed that.
Did you do some sport in those 3 years?
Oh yeah,
Just not cricket.
Everything but, really.
Wow.
And so I came back to it.
Yeah.
And it's always the way, isn't it? If you love something or someone, you'll always come back to them. And I did. And I didn't play it, though, with the intention to play representative cricket again. Right. I played with the men's 3rd and 2nd grade team in Rockhampton at Frenchville Falcons, which was a really awesome and terrific space.
Was that a done thing for women to play in?
No. I think at the time I might have been the only one. There might have been another lady, and then one of my teammates in Jess Jonathan, she played a few years later. But it absolutely wasn't. And
is that because the standard just wasn't there in women's?
There was no women's competition.
None. Wow.
Yeah, so some terrific male mentors, and I say the Wellses. They're pretty big names in Rocky cricket. They've done so much, but across all the Wells boys and their dad Pete, they were such a terrific influence on, yep, you're a girl, but you're one of us, you're welcome, and they were so supportive. So
big contrast from when you were at school, kind of, when those boys had.
Yeah, I think that's just young boys sometimes, and they're trying to work out their own brains and their own insecurities, and sometimes it comes out on the girls in a not so pleasant way. I had pretty thick skin, and you'd eye roll at it, but at the same time I was just like,
as well.
Why?
Yeah.
Why do I need to be in 40-degree heat, chasing leather, when all my mates are at the beach? Yeah, nah, I'll go to the beach.
Yeah, fair. You would, wouldn't you, at that age? So then at uni, you went back into playing just for fun?
Yep.
Not for representative
no other reason, no.
Like that. Yeah. And then what went on from there?
I think they just found out I was, Queensland Cricket found out I was playing again, and they just reached out. And at that time we had a really cool competition. It was like they called it the Cricket Australia Cup. It was like a second 11 tier competition. And it was only like a week, 10 days of the year. And it was basically those on the cusp of the state Queensland team, the domestic structure, and the young ones coming back through, and they said, here's a cool space, do you want to come back and get involved? I did a couple of seasons with that, and it was awesome. And the cricket was good, it was competitive, it was with the girls.
Where does that start, that pathway? Was there always a pathway coming up for girls?
Yeah, so the pathway was probably like, when I was there, it was under 17s, under 19s, women's.
Yeah.
And then Aussie women's.
But no clubs aside, like...
Unless you're in Brisbane or one of your major cities around Australia.
Okay.
women's competitions were few and far
Different,
between. So, yeah, that was kind of the pathway. And jump back into that second 11 stuff, and it was cool. It was more the like the tour and the off-pitch stuff that captured me. It was time with the girls, time with friends. Of course, I'm competitive, so that was awesome. But it was a week of your year, so you weren't away from home constantly. But then, after that, I performed okay at some of them second 11 things, and then they called me up to the Queensland Fire stuff. It was something I never thought I'd really do.
Had you finished studying by then?
Yes, just.
Okay.
Just. So I think I was a year or so, and then...
Sorry, what did you study at uni?
I did sports science and education. So the usual female that was okay at sport in high school. What did she do? She became a female PE teacher because she couldn't play sport. You laugh about it, but how often did it happen? So then I was working in Yeppoon, and I had a full-time job, and that was a tough balance once I started playing with the senior women's team in the more professional league.
Being a teacher.
And teaching. I'd fly down to Brisbane late Friday afternoon, play a couple of rounds of cricket, and then fly back, whether it be early Monday or Tuesday morning if we went wherever. Get on a flight from Brisbane 6 a.m, get into Rocky at 8 a.m, drive half an hour, and I'd literally race into the classroom. That was pretty hectic.
Was that professional?
We had match payments at that time.
Right. So
when I first started, it was match payments, and then it started to generate some momentum pretty quickly to, retainer payments, and then a bit more of a full time. But it was hard at that time because once the money was enough in cricket, it was great for a 17-year-old or someone studying to go, oh, this is decent cash.
Yeah.
For me, being a professional of 10 years in an education space, it was like, that money's still not enough to take me away, or to, it's not equal to what I'm currently earning and those. But I lost my contract, I got sacked anyway. So it stopped that decision being made, I suppose.
That was after how long?
So I'd spent 10 years from 2008 to start of 2018 playing cricket, and that growth of financial reward, I suppose, across that time. So,
did you as the players have to do anything to kind of drive that professionalism?
Massively.
What did you have to do?
Well, and I mean, I say the players. It was a very interesting period where the Australian Cricketers Association really stepped on board and drove it for the women's game.
Okay.
And every state had their delegates, and those girls did a terrific job. People like Alex Blackwell's, Lisa Stalakers in particular, Jodie Fields. They were probably the biggest drivers of that. They made it happen.
Bringing in sponsors or like making it more?
I wouldn't even. I'd say higher than that.
Yeah.
I'd say they work with the ACA to bargain with. The ACA is basically like the players' union as such.
Yeah.
And they went to Cricket Australia, or they still continue to go to Cricket Australia and fight on the players' behalf. And what they did was enormous for the game.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So did you have to? So we've just, in the past, I guess probably 4 or 5 years, we've just developed the Netball Players Association, where they've definitely pushed to make our England Roses contracts better, and the central contract around our leagues better. But that's run by a couple of women who have kind of worked in and around England netball and saw that they needed a change. But as your association was run by players, did you all kind of have to buy into that as
Yeah.
as players around the country?
Absolutely.
How did that work? Like
Everyone
setting
was
it
on
up?
board.
Just straight in?
Yeah.
Yeah, no questions.
Because, well, it was, you know, join forces with the ACA, because at that period, early 2000s, sort of, I think I've got the timelines right, but Cricket Australia and the Southern Stars, the women's space, weren't aligned.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't two very separate entities, which...
Who's the Southern Stars?
So that was the women's cricket space.
Fine, okay.
And it was so separate. And then jumping on with the ACA as a collective, it just needed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And the ACA, you know, they were professionals in their space for the men, and then we came on, and I don't know the numbers. I don't think there was one female that said no to it.
Right.
To being involved, and signing up, so to speak, to the ACA. And then it was in, oh God, I can't remember now, maybe like 2015, 2016-ish.
Mm-hmm.
The boys had like a bargaining agreement period, and the men, the Australia A team, I think, you know, a lot of the guys then, they actually pulled pin on a tour to South Africa, I think, from memory, because Cricket Australia weren't coming to the party as much as they'd hoped for the women's game, and it was a bit of a blanket, you know, get in and support the girls, and they didn't go on.
Wow.
So, you know, there were times when the boys dug their heels in for us, and collectively, and you have a look now, like, what that did, how the domestic structure in Australia is set up for cricketers, female cricketers and male cricketers now in Australia, is enormous. It would probably be, hands down, I believe, the best team sport in Australia. And you look at, from that point in time, you know, the Women's Big Bash League, which is phenomenal, and you look at on the back of, and I've just been out there, and unfortunately my wife's on the backhand of it, but the Australian women's cricket team now are daylight ahead of everybody. And perhaps moments like that, the shifts in professionalism, 100% it's down to that.
Makes all the difference.
And, you know, you and I sit here in a netball space, and I'm really pleased to hear that you guys have got that. We don't have that in rugby league. I don't even know that the men do.
Really?
And it's a space that intrigues me,
Yeah.
put it that way.
Yeah.
You know, I ain't going to be playing much longer. Maybe it's a space that you can go and have, you know, input and a way to create change.
Yeah.
I'd love 100%. To explore it.
Definitely. Yeah. I think, I don't know what it's like for in rugby, women's rugby at the moment, but there has been a bit of, I guess it's our players not knowing exactly what the NPA does.
Yeah.
So like, once you're in it and you understand, right, they've managed to bring in like this much money, or they've managed to up the salary, or like the what's the word? Like the minimum salary that a player can get paid. You realise like how much they are pushing forward the sport, but I don't know what changes or what the women would see immediately, like what you could.
Well, and that's the thing, you're never going to see anything immediately.
Yeah.
But it takes someone to do something.
Yeah, and for people to buy in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's be real, most players would buy in. And you know, it's just a way forward. Like, players need people to have a voice on their behalf. We've got it like enough to think about sometimes, and having those conversations can be really quite awkward.
Yeah.
But, you know, working with your high-end people of your governing bodies, there are conversations that need to happen, which I don't think happen enough.
Yeah, now's the time as well.
I know, well, let's
do it.
Let's do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Maybe not tomorrow, I've got a big week.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I think, well, that's just part of professionalism, isn't it? In any industry, quite often you have, you know, industries with And some people like them, some people don't. But unions of such, you know, like
You gotta have them.
Yeah.
So back to Queensland. 10 years at the
Fire.
Fire.
Queensland Fire, Brisbane Heat. Yeah.
Can you describe kind of? Do you remember the conversation where was it the end of the season when they weren't going to renew a contract?
Yeah, so it was a pretty interesting period leading up to it. Like you, currently left foot as well. So it was just trying to do timelines here. Had a really decent couple of years and I was really enjoying it, and then came over here to England actually to visit Loz. So that would have been 2016.
What year did you meet?
End of 2015.
Okay.
So I came over here in the June, and I remember sitting on the plane thinking, holy dooly, like far out, my left ankle, it looked like I've got elephantitis, like it was huge. I thought that was a bit funny, and did some runnings, like I was doing some training and bits over here, and I got home and started the friendlies of the season, and I couldn't bowl. It felt like someone was just shooting like an archer had me lined up somewhere in the grandstand. Every time I'd land on that front foot, it just felt like they shot an arrow through the back of my foot, and it was really painful, and we tried to rehab it, and then we did some scans, and I ended up having to have surgery, hoping to be back in, can't remember the timelines they gave me, 6 to 12 weeks perhaps.
Were you playing how long were you playing on it when it was painful?
Not all that long. Probably just the pre-season.
Yeah. Anyway,
I had some surgeries and timelines just kept pushing back and back and back, and it just wasn't responding. You're sitting there nodding. Isn't it awful? I can very much empathise with you at the minute, and you know, we fought it a lot, and then we ended up just going back, scan it again. It was all just clogged up and a bit of a mess. So they went and operated again. So I missed that entire season.
Yeah.
Came over here to England. I took 6 months off work. Came over here. Had lined it up with Nottinghamshire to play in the county women's stuff over here. Yeah. And then that all went belly up because of visa issues. Oh. So I came over here and I was like, oh, great, cool. I've taken 6 months off teaching. I need a big pre-season here because I missed the entire of the last year, which was a bit ordinary. Luckily, visa stopped me playing, but lucky it was the Women's World Cup over here that year, the 50 over World Cup, and Lauren's England coach, because I was able to travel with the England girls around, so I was at the hotel, and her coach at the time, Robbo, said, well, what's Courtney doing? Does she want to bowl? And I was like, yeah, I need to train anyway, so I wouldn't mind going to Lords.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So Lauren wasn't real fond of that.
Why?
Oh, because I'm a bit of a mouth.
I did see that on one of your podcasts.
So it was just, yeah, so she was like, yeah, okay, but just do not line her up against me in the nets.
Oh yeah.
She didn't want to face me. I took a little while to realise that that's not what brought the best out in her.
Right. Was
me being a competitive mouth. I was very conscious that it wasn't my space though, so I kept my mouth shut and just bowled. Right. It was really cool. Yeah. So, you know, I got to just bowl to the England girls, and so that was great. Yeah. Access good facilities, and so that was a bit of a saviour.
And you were fine on the foot?
Yeah, and it was coming back, and then I got back to Australia, played the season, had a couple of games, didn't perform, and they were my first few games back. Didn't perform as I'd liked. What's the
headspace going into that?
Oh, just so keen to get back and play. Just so keen. Because I took my first wicket and I cried on pitch. It had been a really long road, and we were playing New South Wales actually, and it's a very special photo I've got. So schnicked Alyssa Healy off, caught by my good buddy Beth Mooney behind the stumps, and you know what cricket huddles are like, and I just start crying.
What did you say?
I was just like, I wasn't sure I was gonna get back to actually playing again. It just felt like it was So had a few tears, and I was just like, I'm just so happy to be playing again.
Yeah.
Played a couple games, didn't perform as I'd liked, got dropped.
At the end of that.
Yeah, got dropped through the National Cricket League, didn't play much through the big bash of that year. And when I did get called back up, I blew my back out trying to unplug a damn cord. Like, my back went on me. So just when I got my opportunity to come back, I couldn't. So it was a bit of an interesting year, and at the end of it, they didn't recontract me.
What did they say? If you don't mind. If you don't want to do
No, I don't mind. I'm just like, if you rewind to, I wish they'd said more.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was probably coming. But
Did
I
you
wish
not
more
think
conversations were had, and probably direct with my coach. I would have loved a few more conversations with him.
Yeah. At
the time. And I knew it was coming, and I probably forced them into a corner.
Why?
I don't know about forced, but I wasn't going to retire.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I quit.
Yeah.
I give up, or I'm moving on. I wanted them to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very, very interesting period. But one thing, and he was a former coach but he sort of headed up the performance stuff a bit more then. Andy Richards was his name, and I love Andy to bits. Hopefully he listens to this actually. He knows it, and I've said it to him. Like, they actually, him and the head of high performance at the time, Brett, came up and they said, no, we'll come and see you. And I knew the conversation that was coming.
Right.
But for them to come to me, to drive an hour and not me have to go to them and, you know, to
Show
sit
some
with me and say, look, we're not going to contract you.
Yeah.
You know, they're always tough conversations to hear, but I wanted them to have the tough conversation. Mm-hmm. That might sound weird saying it, but and it's something I have huge respect for. Mm-hmm. And I've said to them already, like, thank you. It means a lot for someone to come to me and have a difficult conversation. You know, from someone, particularly Richo, who I, you know, had a lot of respect for. Like, it only built that.
Yeah. Did you ask questions, like, during that conversation? Or were you
I
just
think,
taking
you know,
it in?
it was put on me at the time. You know, you can go back to club cricket and prove yourself. And I kind of laughed at it. I thought, like, are you guys serious? And I did. I said, no. I'll either go to another state and play National League, which I didn't explore as much because I think I was fiercely loyal to Queensland.
Okay.
Again, greatest strengths are your greatest weaknesses sometimes. I couldn't truly see myself playing somewhere else. Yeah. And at that time, like, Lauren and I had spent 2 years coming backwards and forwards from Australia and England, and it was just like, maybe it's time for a change. So I went, and that's what I laughed at him. I was like, no, are you serious? No, I'm going to England. See ya.
And you knew that? Did you make that decision as you knew that conversation was coming?
Pretty
like
much.
Before? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty much. I was waiting for that conversation to happen to finalise my other plans.
Yeah.
I suppose, like I said, I probably knew it was coming. Because we had some really good up and coming kids. Don't get me wrong, I do feel like I had more in me. Like, you know, I only had that really only gave me maybe 6 to 9 months back after rehab and surgery and stuff. And I really hadn't played that many games. So I did feel I had more in the tank. I thought I just needed a bit more time. But obviously, professional sport, it's a business.
Yeah.
And I understand, you know, I understand them making decisions. They're making decisions for what's best for the team and ultimately what keeps them in a job. You know, it's cutthroat.
But it does make, things like that do make you realise, like, life goes on outside of sport.
It does.
and like some amazing things are, like me being injured now, as bad as it is, like I do realise like amazing things are happening around me, like I'm forming amazing relationships and doing amazing things, like in other stuff, it like as bad as it is, like netball wise, like I can do so much
and
more.
that's probably my life. I always talk about a bit of a life motto is there's silver linings to everything, and you may realise that silver lining today, tomorrow, next week, 10 years time.
Yeah, it's best to realise it now.
Well, the sooner you do.
Yeah.
But when you realise it'll be the right time to realise it.
Yeah.
But like for you in your situation, why is it happening? What's it giving you? Is it giving you time to make connections elsewhere, to explore your other skills?
Cricket.
You do cricket. We're getting in the net soon, aren't we? Absolutely, we are. But it is. There's silver lines to everything we do, and injury's part of it. And maybe it's cool to know that you're realising it sooner than some people do. Yeah.
I think I learned it when I didn't get re-offered a contract when I was in Surrey.
Was that not in Surrey and then you went to Australia?
Yeah, so I was there for 3 years, my first 3 years of playing Super League netball, and then I didn't get re-offered basically because my shooting stats weren't good enough. Yeah. Well, I made too many errors and etc. And then I remember after that I was like, well, the world's so big, like why am I here? I've lived in Surrey my whole life, why don't I just go and I can go and play netball elsewhere, I can go and do whatever. So then that's why I worked for 3 months to earn enough money to go out and
that's what we set off Mike, like how courageous is that to work for 3 months, splurge probably all of your cash on rolling the dice on an opportunity in Australia and putting yourself out there. And we know what the Australian netball scene's like. It's a big pond. So in a time of wobble for you, you actually sought out a bigger pond to throw yourself into.
I think it's
impressive.
It's like life experiences as well. Like I knew that netball's not going anywhere, so if it didn't work out over there, like I could still come back and... What's
the worst thing that can happen?
And I can go and get to see the whole other side of the world, which so many people don't get to see.
And that was the same message like my family gave me, and my mum, she's funny, like I would say, hey mum, I've got this opportunity. Like when I first got my contract for the Fire, hey mum, I've got a contract with the Fire and they want me to move to Brisbane. Mum would say, fantastic. She always says fantastic, and I say it a lot too. Fantastic, yes, do it. Or like when coming to England, talking about rugby, fantastic, like do it.
Just do it.
And if it doesn't work, my other family, like if it doesn't work, come home. Like we'll catch you. And it's really cool to know there's those safety nets. What's the worst thing that can happen? You get a bit of life experience.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. I'm going.
So after that, getting dropped from Fire, how long was it between that and
rugby
coming over here?
A couple of weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Just packed up and...
Yeah. So, well, I'd made the decision, if I'm going to sort of play cricket, at that point I realised, even if I go to another state, I'm going to have to pack in my job. If I want to be better within this cricket space and to stay in touch with... Because all the other girls, like I'm going down late at night, training sometimes on my own, away from the squad because they are training in the day. It's really quite isolating. For me as a people person, that just sucked.
Yeah.
Like, hated it. So I was like, something's got to change. Work's got to come part-time or finish it wherever I go. But I'd made a decision, like, I need to be over here with Loz. Like, you're in relationships because you want to be with somebody, not just via text and on the phone and FaceTime morning and night. And I was sick of the time zone. I'm up at 4 a.m. to talk to Lozzie before you go to train and go to work and then go to training again in the evening. It was draining.
That is so tough.
Couldn't sustain it. And I knew like there were 3 elements in my world: my relationship, my cricket, and my job as a head of year teacher, PE teacher at school. And I wasn't doing any of 3 of them well to my standards, and something had to give. Right, cool, let's go to England. I didn't have a job here. I knew I couldn't play cricket.
Yeah.
Like,
why not?
Because of the visa issue. So that year with Nottinghamshire that I was meant to play, there's this whole grey area of, if you've been a professional in Australia, you need to be on a sports person visa here. But I hadn't played. You had to have played so many games for Australia to get the sports person.
Oh, right. Is that changed now, or is it still?
No, I think it's still in place.
Oh, right.
So I had to be here 3 years to play cricket. So I was like, okay, cool. So when we came over, Lauren actually took me to a bit of a delayed birthday trip, 30th birthday to Paris. So I arrived in England. We literally jetted off to Paris for 3 days. Loved it. How cool is Paris?
Yeah.
Oh. And then came back, and I think I had literally that week I engaged with the Rhinos rugby down here, and I had my first sessions on various.
Can we go back? Just rewind.
Yeah, rewind.
So you came over. How long were you here for? Before you started it.
Rhinos.
Yeah.
2 days, went to Paris 3 days, come back 2 days and went to Rhinos training. So a week.
So were you thinking about this like on your flight on the way?
Oh yeah. Like
before?
I'd touch base with them.
Okay.
So
before you came over?
Yeah, before I arrived.
Okay.
So I knew it was, something I was going to follow up when I got here.
Okay. What did you tell that? Like, what was that? How did that
funny,
conversation go?
So, you remember Joel Moon, Leanne? He was here, and I worked with his dad at the college I taught at.
Oh right. Was he Aussie?
He was an Aussie,
okay.
yeah. So, like Joel would come home usually around October time, and he'd be training in the gym, and so I kind of sort of knew Joel a little bit via that, but knew his dad really well. Right, I'm going to Leeds, cool. Let me hook you up with Joel. Why don't you play rugby? Yeah, I might. Why not? Can't do that. Let me get Joel, and I think Joel.
So sorry. What do you
it's
play
like
rugby?
It's like a washing machine, isn't it?
So you just say, why don't you play rugby? Yeah, why not? Just like that.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a why not girl. That's a bit of a catchphrase of mine. Why not? Yeah, okay, why not?
Do you not?
And I loved it as a kid. It was probably apart from golf as a koala on Dad's bag, was I loved rugby league. I just didn't have a pathway in it. Right. If rugby league was a genuine pathway as a kid, I would have continued it. But it wasn't. So I thought, silver lining is, I've lost my contract, I can't play cricket. Silver lining is I can play something else now, because cricket was so full on back home that they didn't really like you playing too many other bits. I did do a little bit, don't get me wrong, played a bit of touch rugby or Aussie rules or... But they just, and the more professional it became, the more it was, we need to wrap you up, and fair enough, you're their asset.
Did you have any doubts, like when you...
I saw the Woman of Steel speech, I think I spoke about it.
Yeah, I watched that.
I sat on the floor and literally did the whole sit on the floor and cried and cried and cried. I'd been to one rugby session, Lauren sat with me on the floor and she said, it's going to be all right. Like, it was just change.
Yeah. And
for me, it was about the people. My absolute most bestest friends were in that Queensland Fire team, and that was the hardest transition, was moving on from your mates and not seeing them every single day.
Did you have a big party before you left?
No.
Nothing?
No.
Did you not
Not
want
really.
To?
I'm just trying to think. I did with a couple of the girls. Keep me ring. Like, I had lots of mates, but I was very tight in a ring.
Yeah.
And I kind of just wanted to quietly slip away.
I did that when
I did. Did you?
A lot of people weren't happy, but I think for me it's like, I don't know, I just thought, are we back kind of thing.
Yeah, okay. Well, see, bloody hell, you're only what?
24?
24? Like, you will be back.
Yeah.
For me, at 30 and moving to the other side of the world, I knew I wouldn't be back. And I quietly slipped away. They wanted to do a presentation to me at our annual awards and present me with something, and for me to make a bit of a speech, and I was like, no, get stuffed. No way.
Why is that?
I didn't want to be put in the limelight. I think it's an awful way, to be honest. I think it's an awful way. You've just cut my contract, mate. You've just sacked me. And now you're asking me to speak and say thank yous and be all polite. And at the time, I still felt I had something in the tank, and I was a bit bitter.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I will shake the hands of those who I am appreciative of, and the people I need to. I would prefer, instead of saying a global thank you everybody for everything, I will take the time to shake their hand and say thank you. And if you get a handshake and a thank you from me, well, they're the people I need to thank on the way out, which I hope I did. I feel I did, and I hope I did. Now you've lost my train of thought.
Sorry, we're talking about coming...
Rhinos.
Yeah.
Rhinos.
You had some doubts?
Yeah, of course I had
Was
doubts.
it because you were... Well, obviously, like you said, it was change, but also, like, were you at the standard where...
Here?
Where you
Oh,
needed
yeah.
to be?
I knew at the first session I've got something to offer here.
I think that would be my biggest fear.
It was probably just the people. I didn't have my Kirby's and my Moonies, and it was just discomfort in the people, and and like on all the other fronts. Like, I moved here, and I say to Lauren all the time, I put my life into 23 kilos for you. that saying comes out a lot, but I did. Like, I cut my job back home, and I had a very decent job as head of year and PE teacher in a terrific school, again with awesome staff. I left my family, and I had little nieces and nephews as well. I left cricket. I left everything. I left my golf club. Oh, love my golf club.
Is it still there?
Of course it's still there.
Someone looking after it.
They're always there when I go home. But it's like, I left everything for Lauren, and Lauren was then away at camp sometimes, and I was here by myself. I didn't have the solid connections of friends and people, of employment, of, I established that over a while, but initially it was probably the independence. I feel like I've always been really independent, especially, financially independent. I try not to ask anything of my parents since I left school. And I came over here, and it was almost like I was the stay-at-home wife. Lauren was the breadwinner, and I was a bit of I felt a bit of a, what's my purpose? I really was. I was like, what is my purpose now?
So what was the thought process going through that? Honestly. As honestly as you...
Yeah, go and find your purpose. Okay, go and find a purpose. It was a bit like we spoke about a book earlier, Who Moved My Cheese? Best book I've ever read, apart from War's Theories, but... And Lauren was good for that. She was like, it's okay, like, you've moved half a planet away. When you say it like that, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. It was probably that Hill Girls are tough girls. I sat there, Hill Girls are tough girls. I'm not real tough today, Dad. Like, what the hell is wrong with me? And Lauren was good in that space, saying, it's okay, give yourself a chance. You've been here a week, God's sake. It'll grow. Work will pick up.
And that can be so tough for people with, like, some people with mindsets like that will be, oh, your wife's earning money, so you can just sit back and relax. But for people who are driven and people who want to do things, that can be really, really tough.
Enormous. Like, it was like, I was a stay-at-home wife. I was making sure the house was clean for Loz, because she's a bit OCD on the house. Making sure that was clean when she got home. And there were some weeks I was putting in a timesheet of 10 hours. And for the most busiest person on this planet, sometimes I would race from one thing to another all the time, to the point I made Lauren cry once when she was in Australia, and she said, "This is just not for me, following you around, racing from this to that."
Yeah.
Like, I was so busy. I was occupied constantly to nothing.
Yeah.
And I was like, and at that time I think it was like April, so it was still freezing. So I trained that first week with rugby, and then I watched their very, very first game. Cuthbo didn't select me for that first week. I'd been here a week training. Fair enough, Cuthbo. He said to me, "I'd really love to pick you, but these girls have done pre-season." I said, "It's fine, mate, it's fine." And I watched them they played at Odsal at Bradford. It was freezing.
Yeah.
And Lauren and her dad and her brother and what have you had also come that day, and I was in jackets and coats and I was freezing. And I'm watching this game thinking, I can't wait to play because I think I could offer something.
Yeah.
But at the same
And
time, what the
cold.
hell am I doing? Like, that was my only doubt, was do I think I can get all my layers off to do this? Maybe ring me in 3 months' time. It did, and you look for your purpose, you look for your connections, and that is exactly what I've got with the Rhinos. You know, I've got a friendship base, I've got a purpose, I've got challenge, I've got competition. So, yeah.
Did you find that there was a change in a culture change between?
Well, at the time, I'd come from cricket in Oz, which was a really well-run space. And there were things over here when I first entered the Rhinos which I was really impressed by, and part of me almost needed a little bit of a break from the intensity of it. So I kind of saw it as a bit of a breathing space. It was quite refreshing. And it was probably just what I needed. Was my life wasn't controlled by an app that told me where to be and what to do every single damn day, whilst trying to juggle work. So it was quite refreshing in one way. But yeah, there were some cultural differences. I think it was good though, because Cuthbo, being an Aussie, I really connected with his coaching style, and he probably brought that, and obviously brought that professionalism, because we had a few really, and we continue to have successful years. But yeah, it's probably just the resources and the structures and stuff, and that was our very first year as Rhinos, and it's grown since. But it's probably more the approach, players' approaches.
Such as?
But you just forget that it's all just, and was in 2018, so new.
Yeah.
These girls have never experienced more professional spaces before, so it's very new for them. Whereas, the boys who come into the senior Rhinos, take, for example, a Jack Sinfield, or in your case, I'm not familiar with your academy style. I know we've got the academy now, but a Jack Sinfield comes into the senior team well drilled, not just as an athlete or a rugby player, but through the S&C, nutrition, psych spaces, everything that goes with it. The girls never exposed to it before.
So what do you think that impact has on them?
I think it's full on.
Yeah.
I think it's girls are incredibly appreciative for it. That's just us as women, isn't it? We're just so grateful for the opportunity. But on the other hand, it's like, holy hell, I've got to go home and feed my family. Some of the girls have got kids waiting at home for them. Oh my God, I've got to juggle this with work. All the extra stuff that we do, there's layers and layers, but yet we meet it with a smile, and we're really grateful. And I don't know if you feel the same with netball, or you think the academy girls feel the same.
I think since I learnt a lot when I was probably about 15, 16, when I went into my first national academy space, so like England under 17s. I learned so much about the discipline and about just like being self-motivated and kind of saying no to things and like making sacrifices and stuff like that. I think I learned so much during that space, but I feel nowadays that has kind of been brought into our academies and they are more prepared.
Better transition.
Yeah, I think nowadays. But for me, like going from, like I would just train as Tuesday, Thursday nights as a kid, and then I'd go to Super League and we trained Tuesday, Thursday night, so it wasn't that different. But like coming into Rhinos environment, being a lot more like training most days, most mornings, can be a shock for some people who haven't experienced kind of that high performance side. And we have a lot of girls that work full time that have to take time off work to come to training. But we're at such a hard place at the moment, like trying to organise our training schedule. Do we organise it on nights, 2 nights a week, so that workers can come, or do we want to push it to be more professional and train in the day? But do we have the money to do that? It's such a...
And that was where we went through in Australia, and it's such a rock and a hard place, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like, what comes
With
first,
cricket,
the money or the...
And to be honest, I think it's the money.
Yeah.
Like, in Australia, in the end, cricket said, right, we're at a point now where it's like all or nothing. And like I said earlier, terrific work from the ACA and Cricket Australia to invest in it.
I was going to say, do you think that came a lot from the men's side of things? Because as netball, as a women's sport, we need that investment. But
you guys are in a situation where you are the dominant, sex that plays your sport, whereas most other sports aren't, which presents a challenge in itself.
Did that work where women could then stop working to play cricket, or did they? Was that kind of, how did that go from like a part-time wage to full-time?
Yeah, well, it literally it happened pretty quickly. We had retainers. So, for example, I reckon at the time, someone like Ash Barty, world #1 tennis player, when she had that year off, when she played for the Heat, we had retainers at that point. Might have been, I don't know her contract, but she would have been playing for probably no more than $4,000 to $7,000. £3,000 world #1 tennis player in the world. But then it was, I think that the following season it just took off, and it was, girls were still doing some part-time work. They could still do a little bit, but it was very more casual. Like a couple of girls would work in a coffee shop or
just to do something different, or
and some people need that,
right?
Don't they? Like I would need that, I reckon. Some of the girls still continued to study, but instead of studying full-time, they did it part-time. But it just needs to happen. Just needs to happen. But it's the governing bodies and whatever else that in Australia, and it's very different over here, I find, and particularly in the rugby space, it's very club-driven. And I see it even more so in football as well. Your rich clubs, your poor clubs, it's so privatised as well. Whereas in Australia it's not. So the governing body went, right, because at the time New South Wales were dominant. They won like 20 championship, like national leagues in a row. And it was almost like the rich got rich and the poor got poorer. And because they were so successful, they got more sponsors, and with more sponsorship, and they started to pay players to be full-time.
Was there a cap?
And it was this enormous imbalance.
Was there a salary cap or a floor that they had to stick to?
I can't really remember. But I think they were, and good on them. I think they were getting some extra stuff from some of their sponsors at the time, Lend-Lease perhaps, and it was like the rich are getting rich, the poor are getting poorer, and this competition is just so imbalanced. And it's not good. And in the end, Cricket Australia stepped in and the ACA, and they said, right, we're blanketing this. We're funding it. It's going to come from us, and there will be caps.
Right.
And you've got this amount of money or this number of players. I'm not sure what the situation is now, which created some player movement out of New South Wales, or in and around, and it created a much more level competition. Which, in turn, for the Australian cricket team, has, absolutely skyrocketed them daylight ahead of anyone else. So on the international level, it's paid dividends there too.
That's interesting because we go the other way. So we've got about 20 national team full time,
centrally contracted. Yeah.
But then clubs very much like part time or if that. So it's very much focused on like winning the World Cup, Commonwealth Games, and then like domestic kind of falls under that. And even like our best English players will be playing out in Australia. They won't be playing here.
Yeah, they chase it out there.
Yeah.
Which is really sad, but it's the best thing, I keep talking cricket, but your domestic competition is where probably those girls spend most of their time, would you say, the England girls?
Yeah.
So if they're not engaged in a strong domestic competition regularly, then the depth. Like, I know you don't play with as big as squads, but the depth comes into it, and longevity and sustainability. Like, I just think it's just so worthwhile.
That's so interesting. I think
there's
that's
an
true.
audience for it.
Yeah, I think that's true. But it's like, where does that money come from?
Yep.
Because obviously you can support the 20 top athletes.
But because I don't.
Yeah.
Where does that money come from? It comes from a lot of spaces, doesn't it? And like I said, over here in the rugby league spaces, I've noticed, some clubs do it better than others. And I'd just love to see, for example, like our competition right now is quite lopsided. You could say there's three clubs between us, St Helens and York, and I don't know what it's like in your netball space, but because there's absolutely no money really involved, some clubs do, but people funnel into certain clubs for certain reasons, usually the resources, and none of it, well, not always financial, and other clubs struggle, so our competition, it's so tough until the RFL step in and say, the only way we can balance our competition, you can't tell a girl right now that she can't sign for that club. You can't say, well, we're going to cap you.
Or you have to
or
move
you
across.
have to move to that. Okay, you tell me, like, for example, if they said, Courtney, you can't play at Rhinos anymore, you're going to have to go to Wigan. Okay, so I'm working full time, and I'm not going to get paid, and I've got to travel on the road, and that's gonna, like, it's not, they can't do it.
Yeah.
Whereas in Australia, because the NRLW is relatively alright paid, it's really cool to see they've got some money increases too recently, but they can do that. They can cap it. And players will travel or move for a certain period of the year if you're going to get paid. If you're not, sorry, I've got to be at home with my children or my work or my partner or my family. Or
Can I come back to after what happened after their first game?
Bradford, the freezing cold day in Bradford.
Yeah, after that.
After that, we went home and I said, I'm not sure I'm going to survive that cold. And I said to Loz, I think Lauren's dad particularly, like, he saw the size of some of the girls, and I'm pretty miniature in frame. I think he was a bit worried, actually. And I was like, I'll be right, I'll be sweet.
Get your headgear on.
Yeah, get me storm cap on. But I was just like itching at the bit. I was like, right, I feel I can have an impact here, and I can help. Not that they needed help; they won really well that day. Yeah, and then it was just back to training, and the next week it was against Wigan, and Cuthbo said, "I'm playing you this week," and I was like, "Cool." And there'd just been a lot of chat, and Lauren at home as well. You know, Rhinos v Wigan's a big game. So like a bit of a, what do you call it? Rivalry. Yeah. And I was like, oh, well, that's cool. Like I don't understand the rivalries over here.
Right.
But she kind of tried to explain it to me.
Where is she from?
York.
Okay.
But she was a Rhinos fan as a youngster. So she kind of tried to explain it to me in like Aussie teams. I was like, oh yeah, cool. Well, this is pretty cool to make your debut game here. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I was a bit nervous that day. And I'll never forget, like I ran the ball back off a kick. Holy hell. I did, like I got whacked. And the thought went through my head, I did. In that instant, I thought, Courtney, you're too old and you're too little for this sport.
Yeah.
And then I did a bit of a length of a picture off a scrum, and then I went, nah, you're all right. You'll be just fine, just find space, just don't run into the big uns.
Yeah.
But it's like anything, you just condition your body to it. I mean, playing cricket forever, hadn't exposed myself to the physicality like that. It's very different. Cricket's wear and tear on you and heavy on you still, but not like getting absolutely barreled.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, yeah, went from there and loved every minute of it.
What were you doing alongside playing? What were you doing for work?
I was working really casually. So I'd work for pro coach, so some days I'd be in schools delivering to little tinies with plastic cricket sets. Sometimes I'd be working on our junior girls pathways here at Yorkshire County Cricket Club. I was just doing bits and pieces, and that was probably for the first 2 years. I did bits and pieces, work for myself, and really sporadic kind of hours.
Did you have a plan or like a goal when you came over here, or was it?
There's another thing that was really hard, like, and I do. I had something to offer the cricket space. Unfortunately, I could only do that really sporadically. I say that, but like, let's be real. Yorkshire County Cricket Club men's team weren't going to pick me up as a coach. How many professional men's teams have women on staff? None. The women's space at that time wasn't professional. Do a bit of coaching of a Sunday and through the week in schools. That was it. So as a coach, I didn't have a space to be, I suppose, a bit more professional in.
Was that difficult?
Yeah. Because in Australia we did. And I was like, and you shouldn't, but I was like, if I was in Australia,
you'd be able to do this, and this.
This, and this. But it's grown, and it's different now. Like, I sit here in a space now where I'm a full-time academy coach and a talent development manager, and I love that space. But I think, the barrier at the time in the men's space, that's where the full-time jobs were, and really?
Did you consider, did you approach them and offer?
No, I didn't, and maybe I needed to be a bit more courageous in that. And I had a couple of people that get me involved and sort of volunteer or observe. I went in as an observer into the men's space, and I have, and from that, I'd go in and observe, and I still do. I observe in spaces, and I go, I reckon I could offer something there. Yeah, because naturally, I think females bring something different. A couple of months back, coaching staff at Yorkshire said, in the academy coach, they mentioned something along the lines of, we need someone who's really nurturing and empathetic in the boys coaching space. And I was like, you need a female. Because even though I'm not the most empathetic and
I was going to say
nurturing person in the world.
Yeah, you can. You can.
I can.
Yeah.
And naturally, I think young men and young boys would naturally look to a female
Yeah.
as being more so.
Mm.
And we know what our new generation of people are like. It's about the person.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
I think females can offer so many different viewpoints.
Yeah.
In particularly, you know, I was at head of year in a pastoral capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Our young men and women need pastoral people.
Mm-hmm.
I joked about it, but all right, I'll put it out there. Maybe well, Gary's going to hear it now. I'd like, when Kev Sinfield finished up here,
Mm-hmm.
I sat here and I went, you know what, I'd love to be the first female that sits in that chair
Mm-hmm.
for the club. Yeah. There you go, Gary. Talk to me about that. Is it a consideration for them? Bet you no one's ever thought of that.
Mm.
Could a female do it? Bloody oath we could. And I would, you know, there's only one part of me that stops me from thinking like that. I think I could offer the men's space something, particularly in the cricket space. But there's one thing that stops me, and if I went to the men's space, the girls miss out on a coach. And I don't think we've got the depth in female coaches right now.
Mm.
So I don't dare take away from them, because they deserve good coaches. And I'm not walking away from the girls' space to a boys' space who already get majority of the best.
Yeah.
So I will never completely leave the female space. But I don't pigeonhole myself to just female sport either. I don't pigeonhole myself to cricket.
Mm.
I don't pigeonhole myself to female sport. Like I said, I'm a why not girl.
Mm-hmm.
I like to do crazy things. I like to challenge a bit of crazy here and there.
Mm.
Maybe.
Amazing. So that brings us to, I guess, not now because we haven't reached now, but like your last few years playing for Rhinos Women. How has that been now that you're settled in, and like do you think you're settled in, or like
now that you're settled
in?
I feel very at home.
Yeah.
I feel very at home here. It gives me such a sense of belonging, and it's so cool. Like I come to work here with cricket, and on both sides of this stadium, literally I'd love an apartment block straight above here. It's my favourite two worlds, really.
Yeah.
And maybe cool. Just zip line into my workspaces, that'd be cool. I very much feel at home. And we've done some really cool things in the Rhinos Rugby League space, and it's been really cool to be part of movement.
Yeah.
It's been nice to see you guys come on board and to interact and come and support you guys, and we're growing. I'd just love to see a bit more water and fertiliser so we can grow quicker together.
What do you think that next step is?
Oh, money. Everything's money, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Let's be real. There's no getting away from it. We've probably spoken a lot around that, but I want to be a part of that. I'm not going to be playing forever, but I want to be a part of the change. I want to be part of that wave.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think because you've seen it happen as well over in Australia with cricket.
Yeah.
You've definitely got eyes that a lot of people don't have over here, because we've seen cricket and football do well. Yeah. But obviously netball, rugby, like a lot of things, a lot of women's sport have still got a long way to go.
Oh yeah, we've got enormous growth capacity. Yeah. And that's what frustrates me so much. Is I'm no businesswoman. I'm no businesswoman, but I look at it and I think, any business, right? Let's say we're builders, and we want to start a building company. To do that, we're going to have to buy a lot of tools. We're going to have to buy cars, vans, tools, insurances, this, that and the other.
Mm-hmm.
And we might not make much money in the first year. But by hell, we're going to, like, as the years go by, we're going to grow our business.
Mm-hmm.
And I see it exactly the same for female sport. You know what? We may not pack out stadiums today. But if you're willing to invest and maybe lose a bit of money, worst case, in the first year, think of women's sport in 10 years' time. Will you be reaping the rewards for it then? Just like our carpentry business. Don't buy the house we build, probably.
Yeah.
I just look at it and I think, I'm not a businesswoman, but kind of, I see opportunity there.
I think
it's a bit like netball in Australia.
Yeah.
Netball Australia had to pay the ABC, which is the BBC equivalent, I suppose, to get it on the television.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Netball Australia funding the telecast for whatever period it was, and now it's like
getting cuts.
With that, they exposed all these little kids to it. Whoomp! This volume of players come in, and then they've got this domestic structure, international success, sponsors, and now they've got media and broadcast people coming to them saying, "Yeah, how much?
Yeah.
Is that what we need to do here?" It's an option.
How many games? Because I remember last year you had some games on TV, didn't you? Do you have you had some this year?
Yeah, our Challenge Cup's been on BBC.
Yeah.
And will be again this weekend. And then last year Sky Sport covered some of our semi-finals and
yeah,
finals.
I remember
So
that.
it's not week in, week out.
Yeah.
But we all know that's where a substantial amount of money comes from.
Yeah.
But again, it's making our product marketable. The only way we make our product better is time on task. The only way we do that is allowing girls to not have to go to other employment jobs and invest in our sports space. Because I find it frustrates me sometimes. Like, say, for example, I can be paid in any capacity in the Rugby League organisation except for its main job.
Yeah.
You know, I can be a grounds person. I can be performance director. I could be a coach with the foundation. I can be a cleaner. I can't right now be paid to be a rugby player, which is our main business. So, one day.
Wow.
Not today.
Yes.
But I'm willing to be part of
Yeah.
the tomorrow for the others. Yeah.
Amazing. So I guess we are here now. We've reached today in this story, in this wallowing. What would you say your biggest, it's probably a classic question, but like being as honest or, however you feel to answer the question. What is your...
I'll be honest,
what is
don't you worry.
What has been your biggest event or time in your life that you think you have learnt from, and what has it taught you to be here? It can
Biggest
be a positive
event
or a
in my
negative.
Probably just there's so many little ones, but simple as coming over here. Like I said, 23 kilos, and I'm doing things that lots of people dream of, things that I didn't dream of, and it's just that when you think, where the hell am I, you come out the other side. And my stuff's not that bad. Like, I don't face all that. I don't think I face all that much adversity in my life. I really don't. I consider myself really lucky, but yeah, I continue to go and find the cheese, like that book I spoke about. And transition from different spaces constantly.
Yeah, what have you learnt from that?
I just find like for me my biggest thing is I love to see spaces where I can build my character.
Yeah.
So for example, if you said to me, Courtney, we're short for netball on the weekend. Everybody's out with COVID. Would you play? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If some people would go, holy hell, and there would be a moment of, holy hell, what?
Yeah.
Rhea? Are you serious?
Yeah.
And I know this would never happen. We need you to just put a dress on and play.
Put a dress on to start.
Exactly. I'd do it. I'd 100% do it. Like if you were that down and out, and like I just use that space as an example, and it's Tracy, right, your coach?
Yeah.
Yeah, please, Tracy, probably look very much further than me. But I just like to look at opportunities and go, okay, how can I build my character in that situation? And if I can build my character in that situation, then I'll do it. Why not? Like I'll take something from it.
Will you approach it with nerves and like?
Oh, there will always
doubts?
be little bits of nerves and always little bits of doubt.
Because I think when I look at people, I think, oh, they don't get nervous about stuff. Or
all the time. I still get nervous.
Themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Enormous. But I think I transition very quickly.
Mhm.
I get a little bit nervous, but as soon as I'm out there, I'll step onto the pitch. I'm sweet.
Girls are tough girls.
It is. It's literally white line fever.
And
it takes over and I go, right, you're in compete mode, and I kind of glaze over a bit and yeah. But I still get nervous. I still play mind games with myself in my head. I have to have a voice that I turn the volume up more sometimes and remind myself. What does it say? Oh, well, I only actually spoke about it wider than Lauren for the first time. We did this inspiration session with some groups of kids and parents over at the Nines tournament we had. First time I've really told anyone about it. 2019 Challenge Cup final. We played Castleford at Castleford like 2 weeks before, perhaps, in just the round game of the Super League, because the seasons were sort of intertwined, and they beat us 27-0. And we didn't look like scoring. It was awful. Our performance was shocking. And they were a really good team that year. And we played them a couple of weeks later in the Challenge Cup. And the night before, I reckon I had played that game 27,000 times in my head. I'd hardly slept. Like everything just was going through my head. It was awful. Woke up next morning and my brain's just going at me. There was a moment I was brushing my teeth and I was exhausted. I felt like I was on empty. Like that fuel light was just amber. And I thought, I haven't even stepped on the bus and I've got to go out and do battle against a team that's whopped us. And my mind's going, blah, blah, blah. So I was brushing my teeth, and lucky I had some really cool stuff go on with cricket with a sports psych. And it's just being conscious and aware to it. Like this person that's talking to you, you've got control over that. Like I've got control about the conversation in my own head. So I put my toothbrush down, brushed my teeth, and I'm not going to use the words I used, but I literally looked at myself in the mirror and I pointed at myself and I said it out loud. It was basically along the lines of, Courtney, you're the captain. Sort you out because the other girls don't need this energy. Sort it out, you're the captain, and I'll see you tonight when you're a Challenge Cup winner. And I literally pointed at myself in the mirror and I walked out the room with my shoulders back and off I went. And we did. And I was just so conscious that I couldn't be that energy for my girls because I knew they were all going to be on edge themselves. And I know that they often look to the leaders within our group for assurance. Yeah. And I had to do that. And if my brain was, like if my skull was glass, they didn't want to be seeing what was going on in there.
Mm.
So I just, you just got to play mind games with yourself and flip it the other way. And I did, and that was one occasion where you just overcome a bit of self-doubt.
But that takes practice, though.
It is.
Mm.
It's like anything, it's a skill. And skills probably start with, like I said, awareness.
Mm.
I am aware of this negative conversation that's going on in my brain right now, and I understand that I can control it to a degree. I can turn the volume up on the other one. I can remind myself of the times when I've been red hot.
Mm.
And the times I've been good outweigh the times I've been poor. So that was a bit of a...
Amazing. I feel like I could pick your brains for hours, but we might stop here. Because we've been going
We'll do
for
it
a
over
long
a
time.
coffee. We'll do it over a casual coffee next
and
week.
a net.
And a net once you're out of the boot.
Yes, amazing. Yeah, so we'll wrap up. Just unless you think you've got any more wisdom to share.
Oh, look, I wouldn't call it wisdom. It's simply... It's certainly not wisdom, it's just my story. And that's part of my story so far. Plenty yet of pages to turn, but, if, you're part of my story now. You're one of the people I've come across, and I can't wait till you've asked me a lot of questions today, but in a more informal capacity over a coffee, I can't wait to pick your brains more. And through story and sharing, we support others and
can learn so much.
Yeah, especially in the women's sport world. The more we can do that, the better for our growth as athletes and as young women. I say young women, I'm bloody old.
Oh my God.
No, I'm yet to hit me prime. What are you talking about? Yeah, but seriously, it's just about, and it's about for me, it's about surrounding yourself with like-minded people. And in women's sport, I speak of it often, where we've got to be each other's cheerleaders. I came to watch you play netball the other week, and I was mesmerised. The girls actually said to me, "Courtney, are you all right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm just so taken by this. I'm really captured." So even though I have no clue, really, of the intricacies that are going on court, so captured by you and the girls, what you guys do, and we're just like-minded individuals. The more we can surround ourselves with that, the better, and the more we can speak our story for people out there who are listening, then awesome.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for
Pleasure.
chatting, and obviously best of luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Can't wait to watch.
I'll have a conversation in the mirror, shall I? That'd be good.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks
so
for having me,
amazing.
mate. That's really
Thank
cool.
You. And we'll wallow another time.
Great wallowing.
Thank
Well done.
you. Yay!